All
Thank you
right.
for joining the Wellness and Wahala podcast. So, those of you who are tuning in for the first time, Wahala in Nigerian Pidgin English means issues and problems. So, I have special subject matter expert guests in the house to give us great tips on how to overcome various Wahala. So, how are you, Sir? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank
And how are you
you.
too?
I'm good. It's a great honor to have you here today. And our topic of discussion is World Day of Social Justice. And my special guest in the house is Barrister Max Solomon in the house. He's a lawyer. He's a former House of Rep candidate. Okay, so he knows about politics and serving his community and his nation. He's a Christian leader. He also studied and minored in peace and conflict resolution and social justice at DePaul University and also taught cultural anthropology. So he's really a great subject matter expert, a great SME when it comes to talking about social justice. So thank you so much for being on the Wellness and Wahala podcast.
Thank you for having me. I like the Wahala part, being a Yoruba man too.
Yes, so all of us we deal with, the wellness part is like public health wellness. Everybody is always seeking to be well. However, all of us face, one wahala or the other in life. So it's
Indeed.
always good, to get experts like you to help us navigate the different wahalas, we go encounter.
Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. So, over to you for this first question I have is as we celebrate World Social Justice Day, we recognize that social development and social justice is indispensable for achievement and maintenance of peace and security within America and globally. So, how can we ensure social justice is really attainable for all? Like, can we really attain social justice? Because we've been having this problem of Wahala social justice for a long time. So, what do you think, Sal?
Thank you for that question. And again, thank you for having me. And
Yes.
my greetings to all your listeners. I hope everybody's doing well.
Yes, sir.
You've asked a very many might argue existential question, especially given that it is, like you said, World Social Justice Day. However, conversations about social justice can only be fully engaged in if there is an understanding as a first premise or as a stepping stone or
Mm-hmm.
starters, an understanding of what those two words mean, especially in context of globalism or globalists or world social justice. We have to understand what those two words really mean, or at least discuss it. I think there should be
Mm-hmm.
a very healthy conversation and discussion about social justice. So let me take a stab at it as
Okay.
far as having this conversation. Those two words are very different: social
Mm-hmm.
and justice.
Mm-hmm.
And we try so hard because we're human beings and we have this feeling, this inherent feeling to flourish, an inherent wish to flourish, for everybody to do well, for the world to be at peace, for everything to be perfect, and everybody gets whatever it is they desire and it's equal and all that.
Mm-hmm.
However, we need to understand that social justice or even the discussion about equality does not necessarily mean egalitarianism.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's no way we're all going to be equal. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
A very good example of that, one of my colleagues would say, is if you gather 10 people together and you give them each and gather them together from all over the world, gather them from all countries, just 10 people from all with diverse background, different countries, all human beings, of course, and just give them $1 million each.
Mm-hmm.
You can be rest assured that each one of them would have something different to do with their $1 million. They're not going to do the same thing, and they're not. All of them are not going to seek the same thing as far as personal desires or even what they consider to be wellness, right?
Yep.
For example, one of them might be a chain smoker and might spend half of that money in indulging, just giving an example. The other might be interested in other things that they're interested in. But here's the point. When we talk about social justice and we define society, we have to define society first. We understand that society, by its very definition, means differences. We have different cultures, different countries, and different, mores and laws even. So when you're looking at social justice from the standpoint of society, you come across your first wahala, your first issue. What social justice means in a country like Saudi Arabia might not be what it means in a country like United States of America, given the same problem. So let's identify a problem that's affecting human beings, and then we look at that problem from a point of view of bringing justice. So let's talk about justice for a second. Justice, as I would attempt to define it or explain it, can be described as something or an attempt to address an issue or a situation of inequity or inequality or inequity. And inequity can be forced or perpetrated. For example, if I break into my neighbor's home and I steal their TV, I have brought about some kind of wahala, an issue to my neighbor because I stole their TV, right? And from that perspective, what would be justice? Justice for them will be different for what justice would be for me. For me, because that means you're setting it up for a victim and perpetrator point of view of social justice. For me or for my neighbor, justice for them might be throw Max in jail, make him pay for my TV, and then throw him in jail. For me, social justice in that situation might be, well, I don't have TV. I've never had TV. I have to watch, and I need this TV, and that's why I stole it. Please, I'm not a thief. I'm not a thief. I'm not an armed robber. I just need a TV.
He does want TV.
Exactly. So what in that situation, who's gotten justice, right? Especially who's going to define justice. Justice for me defined will be different from justice for the person that I just forced an inequity upon or perpetrated a crime upon. Correct. So given that, I would step out and say justice, there's no such thing as a universal justice. You cannot have a universal justice defined, right? Because societies are different, cultures are different, and what is justice for a particular situation might not be enough justice for another situation in another society, right?
I agree.
So you can argue then whether or not there's any such thing as such thing as justice, especially if you're looking at it from a globalist point of view. Globalists, God bless their hearts, globalists believe that everybody in the world, we're chasing an ideal where everybody in the world can just enjoy the same thing and be at peace and everything is the same for everybody.
No, because we're not all the same.
There you go.
It's not possible.
There you go. But globalists would now try to solve specific problems within specific societies or culture using the platform of social justice. And therein lies the problem. You cannot bring, or at least you cannot use social justice as a tool when it's time to address specific problems within specific societies and with specific people. Right? So that brings me to the question of what can be done to your question of, is social World Social Justice Day, what can be done to achieve social justice in the world? Well, I'm going to put on my minister or clergyman hat to answer the
Yes.
question. Social justice, as we want it, as globalists define it, can only be achieved, in my perspective, in my point of view, when the kingdom that for example, Christ spoke about, when that kingdom comes, then we would all have that kind of justice that we're seeking. But for now, we can only do what we can to bring solutions to specific problems wherever we find it. And I'm going to stop with this so you can ask your second question. Justice, for me, is doing the best you can to right a wrong specifically where it's found. It has to be specific. It cannot be a globalist approach. One hat does not fit all.
You just had a really good point that I think would help us both personally and professionally, is that one hat would not fit all. There's not a copy and paste, approach where we can say, okay, this is the solution. Let us paste it everywhere in the world and everybody should do the same thing. You made a really good point earlier that we are all diverse. We have different tribes. We have different cultures. In some communities, different religions, different political parties.
Right.
And you have people that, manipulate, definitions to their interests. Just like you said, the globalist agenda, they have their own agenda, which doesn't necessarily fit in the best interest of our people. And I like how you put on your clerically hat, and said, well, look, that perfect kingdom is when, heaven comes on earth as it is in heaven, and, Jesus returns.
Right.
And it's a new earth, because, the way we are set up right now is a mess.
Right.
There's a lot of wahala. So we need to be realistic. I love the approach that you said. We have to be specific. I always say people have to be smart, specific. It has to be measurable. It has to be achievable or attainable, right. Realistic,
right.
And within a certain time frame. Because what we might aspire to do, for example, here in the U.S., let's say like roll out a policy, that's a social justice policy relating to, for example, access to healthcare, the health disparities, wahala that we face here. It might take a couple of months, a year to roll out some type of policy. In some other countries, it takes years. I mean, a lot of fighting, and sometimes that policy will never pass. So, what it looks like, social justice, I don't think it can be generalized. It's good to say World Social Justice Day, but we need to be specifics on what are the needs in our community and what is realistic, within the time frame that you have to be able to achieve that. So that gets me to my next question, which is the theme for this year. Social Justice Day is called A Call for Social Justice in the Digital Economy. So since early 2020, of course, all of us are living in the COVID-19 wahala pandemic. So we have this, coronavirus that has really put a lot of us working at home remotely, our children, going to school at home, and there's a lot of business activities have been impacted, and the, reliance on technology now has even, exacerbated. However, there's a growing digital divide, especially when you're talking about more developed countries and developing countries. You can speak, I think, greatly because you've lived in Nigeria, you've lived in America, you've lived in different nations, and you see the differences. So, and I know just firsthand, serving back at home in Nigeria and, some poor communities, whether that be, in Kafanchan or Mina, that there's some people that didn't even have stable electricity, not to talk about access, to computers and tablets and things to be able to work and go to school from home.
Right.
So those are the gaps and foundations that were always there. But I believe with this pandemic, it had just opened up, just a lot of the wahalas that already existed, and just poor infrastructure. So I wanted you to give us some, to talk about that, and then also the just the digital divide, and then how can we really try to address those gaps, because there's different socioeconomic status, there's different determinants of health, and other factors. Just like I said, if you're saying, oh, I should work from home, I don't have lights, so even if I have money to pay for internet or get a computer, if I don't have access to electricity, or I can't afford to buy a generator and things like that, how can we really address those fundamental issues that already exist in the digital economy?
All right, thanks for that question. Again, I would approach that question. Again, it's very broad. I would approach that question from where I stopped, and where you continued. You eloquently summarized what the issues are, especially when we're looking at the wahala, like you said, from a general perspective or point of view of globalism. We have to be reminded that, as far as specifics go, talking about the pandemic and how the pandemic has exposed or caused a lot of inequities as far as the digital world, or like you said, digital divide. We have to be reminded, though, that before the pandemic, before COVID hit, there were many countries in the world that their citizens didn't have access to the internet. As a matter of fact, like you said, you're talking about the internet. Some communities don't even have access to power.
We don't have lights.
Right. Oh. And they don't talk about power.
We don't have running clean water. We don't have.
So it brings me, sometimes when we discuss these kinds of issues that affects human beings, or that has negative impact on human flourishing, I think about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If I'm not able to eat, if I can't even eat or feed, or have a place to sleep, food and shelter, and you're talking to me about the internet, that sounds to me like a displaced priority, right? Like, don't even talk to me about the internet if I never even I haven't even eaten, right? So
right.
The fact that we now have COVID, and yes, it has exposed or exacerbated the digital divide. The approach then will be, how are these different societies or even countries dealing with COVID? I'll tell you this, many countries in the world are back to normal. Many countries in the world, they don't require their students or their kids to stay home and find internet so they can attend classes. Some don't even have that platform, right? Yeah. It's one thing to have access to the internet. It's another thing to have the technological platform to conduct classes over the internet, right? I was just in Nigeria, and the kids are back to school normal. As a matter of fact, everybody is back to normal, and you wonder, wait, is there COVID in this country or no? Right? And people are back to normal. So again, it brings us back to specifics. Where and how? If we're talking about the United States, where of course we're still dealing with the COVID and all the restrictions, where many kids on the south side of Chicago are not able to have access to internet, much less attend class, right? Then we can focus on that. So I guess my answer is, bring it back to specific, bring it back to specific societies and specific neighborhoods, because one hat does not fit all. It's not everybody is interested in this digital access thing. Many people are still waiting for their next meal. So having said that, it brings us to, whose responsibility is it? When we talk about bringing justice to digital divide, where societies have been affected by COVID.
Yes.
Whose responsibility? when we talk about bringing justice to a situation, I can identify three actors as far as bringing relief or bringing justice to a specific situation.
Okay.
The first and obvious is the government, right? That is the usual suspect. Everybody wants the government to do this or do that. Why can't the government do this or do that? And everybody just want something from the government. The second actor will be the individuals, you and I.
Right.
What can I do? What can you do to bring about? What have you done this year? What have I done this year to help that next kid have access to the internet? What can I personally do?
Right.
The third actor is a collective of or a hybrid of both, where we have NGOs. And we have groups and societies, nonprofit organizations coming together for a specific cause, right?
Yes.
Who wants to bring about relief to a specific wahala, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So from that perspective, or from that point of view, and talking about the digital divide or the digital lack of access, we need to first identify where these problems and these issues are. And once we identify, it's not going to be a global approach. It's not going to be a universal approach, because I can tell you right now, I could go to a village or a city in Lagos, Nigeria, and I'm talking about giving them access to the internet. They're going to look at me as if I'm out of my mind.
Right. Like, they talking about I need food.
My kids go to class. Our teachers are working. We don't need internet access for the class. We don't even, as a matter of fact, some parents don't allow their kids to access the internet because of the kind of world they'll be exposed to. Right. Some parents, I've been in court where parents have argued that they don't want their teenagers to have phone or have access to the internet until they're a certain age.
Yes.
Right.
Restricted.
Yes. So the problem, then the question becomes, is it a problem of access, or is it a problem of restricted access, or is it a problem of inequity or lack of, access as far as social status or socioeconomic status, affordability? Can they afford it? And what is the issue? Right. So once we identify the issue, then we can identify a solution. Then we can identify who, whether the government or the individual or the NGOs or a hybrid of both, that's going to bring about the solution. So that would be my approach to bringing solutions to specific problems, especially that of the digital divide.
That is the excellent solution. So I loved how you broke it down at the government level, at the individual level, also, the other non-state actors like community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, and maybe using a combination of all three.
Right.
But the thing that I have the issue is, I'm going to be honest, is that when it even comes to the government level, so, like how it comes to elections, you were running as a former candidate in the election, and just when I just talk to people regularly about, just government and politics, and just being able to advocate, to your representatives that are there. So if you have a senator, so if this is the state of Illinois and I have an issue, or I want to advocate on, wahala that's going on in my community, I should be able to say, okay, let me write, a letter, a petition to Senator Dick Durbin, who's the senior senator here, and he will be able to address it. Many people I'll talk to, they won't even know, that who their senator is in their state. I'll say, they have 2 senators in each state. We have 100. Just that basic breakdown. And our community, and same back at home, I'll say, in Nigeria, we have 36 states. We have local government chairmen, you have state representatives, you have people in the House of Assembly. It's not just the president. Everybody's always, president did this, president. No, that at your local and your state level, you should be an active citizen. That's one thing that is universal. The solutions might not be the same.
Right.
But one thing that is the same is individual. We all have more. It says we the people, even in the Constitution of the Federal Republic. I said it starts off, and you're a lawyer. It says we the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We the people of the United States of Nigeria. The power is more in the people.
Right.
But unfortunately, a lot of us are not even empowered to know how to be active citizens, to take part and do our part. We always point the finger and say, oh, government. I'm like, no, which government? Oh, the president. No, that's federal. Let's break it down at the state, at the local level. If you say you have a problem with transportation, there's a pothole, in your community, for example, you're not going to the president. We have a Department of Transportation. There's different people that have jurisdiction,
right?
But people don't understand that. They say, oh, well, I'm not a lawyer. Why should I have to understand? No, you shouldn't have to be a lawyer, and you should not have to have a legal background to understand, that you're a citizen, that you have rights, and that there are people that are appointed, to be there to serve you and to serve in the best interest of that community. And, that's why I was advocating for you. And I still pray. And I know, it might take a while, but I know eventually, God's timing, you will get there, because we need leaders like you that are going to have our back in the community that's in the best interest. But, when you don't go, with the crowd, or the status quo, and, everybody's, always saying, the government is bad, the president is bad. And just seeing it from both sides.
Right.
I tell people, I said, I have worked for the government, so I'm not even seeing it from the civilian standpoint, but just in the government, a lot of these leaders, they're human beings just like us, so, and they might not know everything. You might be the senator of your state. That does not mean that you're a subject matter expert in
Right.
everything that's going on in every single community and local government. You understand? So you that's from that community, whether you live in Hazel Crest or whether you live in Hyde Park or whether you live in Calumet City, that is your community. So you know best as a subject matter expert in Calumet City, for example, than your senator that has never lived there.
Right.
You understand? So if you have solutions that you want to advocate for, you should be able to write. And so that's the good news about technology. Instead of being on social media and posting Snapchats and selfies, you can actually contact your senator online. Even Nigerian senators and people, they have social media accounts. You can contact them. You can put them on blast and say, look, I'm writing a letter, I'm writing a petition. I wrote it to your office. I didn't get a response. And you get them. Oh, I give you 7 days to respond. If they don't respond, you put them on blast on social media. So when they want to get reelected, then you don't have to elect them, because when they were there, they didn't provide the solutions that your community needed. So then you need to appoint somebody. You can't complain about the person that is there when there are other potential new candidates that can come, but people don't give them the opportunity, to serve. They're just, they're just so nonchalant when it comes to understanding, social justice and politics and the issues. Just like you said, they're specific, they're custom made. All of it is not the same. And we have to look at the specific problem or wahala in that community and to come up with a possible solution. But I think the biggest takeaway is that, yes, the government might have a part, community organizations, NGO, faith, they might have a part, but the strongest influence that you have is me and you.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
We don't have no influence on anything. We have influence on us and how we can also advocate to those other parties to make sure that we put pressure on them so we can seek, and get that transformational change that, that we're seeking. So that gets me to my last question is, what solutions can you give us, final solutions or propose policies as global citizens? Like, of course, there's different wahalas, and depending on the nation and community is different. But what is the takeaway as global citizens? Like, how can we walk away and do our part as individuals to ensure social justice within our own reach? Whether it's, social justice when it comes to, infrastructure issues, education issues, healthcare access issues, whatever the issue is. But how can we as citizens do our part?
We need to go back to community building.
Okay.
We've turned away from personal responsibilities, diffusion of responsibilities, and we've handed all that, including our brains, we've handed all that over to what we call government.
Mm-hmm.
Government is not the solution to everything. Um, a long time ago, even before the civilization as we know it, uh, communities are built at the nuclear level. When families get together, identify a problem within the community, and they've gathered their men and women together and they fix it. They build a common place for all the kids to go, and where the elders or the teachers can teach them morals and responsibilities. But now, government has gotten so big and so strong that most of these things are assigned to government automatically for solutions. So one of the first steps in solving any problem is to first identify that problem. Once we identify a specific problem, and I'm going to go back to the digital divide, as far as access to digital technology or internet, or in the face of COVID, this is a time to be as specific as possible. As a matter of fact, I would argue that government sometimes can be a hindrance. Many parents are ready to have their kids back in school. Yes. Many kids are ready to go back to school. As a matter of fact, many kids are bored and they don't like the internet class system where they're only sitting in front of a computer. Human beings, we need social interaction. We need to interact with each other, personal, interpersonal interactions, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But government is telling us, no, we can't have them out yet. So in that case, where's the social justice? Is government the hindrance, or is it for our safety, or is it for our good? Is government helping, or are they not helping? That's a conversation that can be had. But if the problem really is internet access, and government is the one or the entity telling us that we're not going to go back to tradition where we don't need internet access to have education, then I would put before you that government needs to provide the internet access to these kids.
That's what I was going to say. Somebody going to pay my bill.
Exactly. If you're going to have them sit home, right. As a matter of fact, not only do I expect you to get them that internet, I expect you to subsidize their computer, and whether they want a laptop or a desktop, you need to get them that. The stimulus checks should be a stimulus computer or a stimulus laptop in addition to the checks. And then, we can have all homes wired for internet, or maybe that'll be the next goal. Every home must be wired for internet. Hopefully, internet will be free one day. But as long as it's not free and we have to pay for it, then another wahala rises up, which is the wahala of affordability. Can I afford it?
Affordability, yes.
It's there, but can I afford it? And if I can't afford it, therefore my child cannot access it, who's going to help me afford it? And for how long? Right? So it leads us into a never-ending cycle. And that's why it comes back down to the individual and the community to find solutions to their own specific problems, and make sure that their community flourishes one community at a time.
Wow. Thank you. That is extremely deep, but I hope that you that dropped so many great gems and advice that my audience, from all over the world will really take hold of that. The power, I believe, is in our hands, and we need to do our part to advocate. If it's at the political level, if some things are out of our hands, then we should be able to raise our voice on those issues. So I just want to thank you so much for being a guest on our Wellness and Wahala podcast. I know a lot of people will want to get in touch with you. So please, how can they get in touch with you?
The best way to get that, and thank you for having me once again. It's been a pleasure and an honor to engage and be a part of this conversation. And it should be ongoing, I hope. And I have no
Yes.
doubt that it'll be ongoing. The best way to reach me is via email. I'm on
Okay.
Facebook, Max Solomon. Anybody can find me on that. However, the best way to reach me personally will be via my email address, and that's max@maxsolomon.org. Max
Okay.
at maxsolomon.org.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. It has been a great honor for World Social Justice Day. This is also February, Black History Month. So it's really great to have you on the Wellness and Wahala podcast. And our Wahala proverb of the week is from Fela Kuti, the famous Fela from Nigeria, that says, "The secret to life is to have no fear." Once again, the secret to life is to have no fear. So let's put our faith in order, as he's also a clergy. So faith over fear,
Yes, yes.
especially in this pandemic wahala.
Right.
And if you have any last words, over to you.
No, thank you for having me. I couldn't have said it any better than Fela Anikulapo Kuti himself.
Yes, so thank you, and I'm wishing everyone no wahala this week and this season.
Amen.
Bless up.
Amen to that. Thank you.
Thank you.